Good morning to everybody. We are live. Hello, Stephanie, and how are you doing today? Hello, Stephanie, can you hear
Hello,
me?
Mimba. How are you? I'm fine and excited. I can. Can you hear
All
me?
right. Yes, I can. That's fantastic. So it is our Mindset Monday where we kind of mellow out. We pull away from the numbers for a second, and we just to focus a little bit on how to get people's mind right, how to get them correct, and how to push them to the direction. I know some of you are itching for the financial stuff right now, but yes, it will. It does come every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Today, we just like try and reorient all of us so that we can attack the week in the best way possible. And I always like to say a precursor to this, Stephanie, is that it doesn't mean as we speak about this, we too ourselves are perfect. It means that these are the things that we are trying to do or training. Remember, we said we have to remove the word trying. These are the things we are
Mm.
training our minds to do to eventually bear fruit. And it takes time, it's hard work. So to all of you, we are still continuing with our series from the book Power to Change. So that's been our year-long series this time, where we've actually been talking about it for mindset, because everybody does need to change their mindsets. Definitely, if you don't change your mindset, how do you change your outcome? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think, Stephanie? In fact, I'm going to throw this question at you. Do you think the mindset is the cornerstone of a person's life?
I do. I think the mindset is actually the foundation of anything that you want. It's what you think about something that forms who you're going to become. It's what I think about the society. It's what my mind has actually, has actually been consumed with that makes up who I am. So I do believe it all happens with the mind.
True. Two people can see the exact same situation. I'll give you a simple example, Stephanie. The 90s of Zambia was a horrible time financially. We were facing astronomical levels of inflation. Our currency was jumping all over the place. The 80s and the 90s, currency was jumping all over the place. Everything was going underground. Economic growth was the slowest it had been. Yet some people got very wealthy and some people didn't. To the point where the people who didn't get wealthy went and called the people who got wealthy witchcraft users. It's simply because a lot of people have different orientations about situations. Some people will see a collapsing industry and see an opportunity, while others will see a collapsing industry and see a disaster. And that's the
Mm.
difference. Some people will see, it's time for me. The mini meal producing companies which the government had have fallen apart. Now it's time for me to form one. While someone will say, oh, the sky is falling, we're in trouble, what's going to
We
happen?
did. We did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really, it boils down to when a situation hits you, how do you process it? And I think that's a very important thing. There's another book by Pastor Craig Groeschel, which is winning the war in the mind, and he talks about the difference between frames and filters. And what he says is a filter is how you see something, a frame is how you express something. So how you frame it,
Mm.
it designs how you express it. What are you going to say about it? And it's very important because that those are decisions we make as people. How we see things and how we frame things. What information do we allow to get in? What information do we allow to or do what or how do we speak about situations? There's always that old story, Stephanie, of two men walk into a country where people are not wearing shoes. One says, there's no market here, I'm gone. The other one says,
Mm.
thousands of people who need shoes. And it's the
Yeah.
exact same picture, but a different way of processing it. So it really boils down to how we process it. You can say, Zambia is a disaster of a country. You can say, oh, there's opportunities to create applications, there's opportunities to create all sorts of things. How many people, Stephanie, complained about the taxi industry and the overpricing of taxis? But one person said, let me create an application so that people can book taxis on their phone and we can have stabilization of prices there. You see the difference. One person saw a problem
Mm.
and saw an opportunity, the other
Mm.
one saw a problem and saw a complaint. And what is the difference between us and the people who saw the opportunity? He filtered the situation differently and he framed it differently. Therefore, he acted differently, and therefore, he started a wealth building engine. We all complain about it and pray that our politicians can do something about it. Meanwhile, somebody actually did something about it simply because he filtered and framed it differently. So, this is why we keep saying the way the mind is oriented to capture. So, whenever someone says your mindset, it's a word that's used very often. Okay, it's a word that's used very often, and there's also mindsets such as Carol Dweck's work, which is growth mindset and so forth.
Mm.
But one of the most important things I think about when I think about mindset, as I said, is filters and frames. Okay, so when you see a situation, your mindset is what do you see? Okay, because one
Mm.
person will see an opportunity, the other person will see a disaster. Okay, that's the difference. That is a mindset difference. When you see something, what do you see? Okay, when something is wrong in society, one person sees this is the government who has to sort it out. The other one sees this is something I need to fix it myself. The fact that the economy is collapsing, but some people are making their efforts to save and invest and to put their money into their asset portfolios now. Okay, there's a bond auction happening at the end of this week. Only a couple of thousands of Zambians are going to participate in it, while the rest of people are going to go and enjoy their money. Billions have been given out, and I think NAPSA had announced, I think yesterday or over the last weekends, that they've given out almost about 8 billion kwacha to their members in terms of the 20% withdrawal. The question, Stephanie, is what has happened to that money? Okay,
Mm.
what has happened to those billions of kwacha which people have used? Have we used it for productive things? We've been demanding it. Have we used it to improve our economy, or did we just enjoy it for a very short space of time? These are the questions, once again, we all need to battle with. Are we doing the things that we need to do with that money or not? And that boils down to mindset. The second part of mindset, Stephanie, is
Mm.
two people will see a problem. One person will say, I've got the skill to solve this problem. I can start a business around it. The other one will say, the government must look into this. So
Yeah,
already
yeah.
there's that is how mindsets are expressed differently. So everybody has to ask themselves, when you encounter a situation, what what information are you taking in from that situation? Are you only taking in the negative information, or are you taking in the positive information? That is your filter. Okay, so if you want to change what you're seeing, change your filter. Okay, and that a lot of the way we see things, Stephanie, comes from the things we've been through. So you really have to do an audit of your life experience. Even in the psychology of money, Morgan Housel talks about the fact that certain people have been through certain things, so they see certain things as disasters. I'll give you a localized example. Certain people went through the. I'll tell you why certain generations favor physical assets, while the younger generations are okay with a mix of physical assets and financial assets. Okay, the older generation saw the market vaporize. They saw inflation go to dust. Okay, Stephanie, we've been through a Zambia where inflation has generally stayed below 20%. That's what we've lived with. Yes, we had that year where inflation jumped above 20% last year, and that was scary. I mean, in 2021, that was scary for people. But in general, inflation has been relatively mellow in comparison to the past generations, where Stephanie, they went through hurdles of inflation. Okay, they went through loads of it. They went through 135% inflation. In fact, on average, inflation was moving about 60% at one point. Okay, in fact, there was a 5-year period where inflation was moving at 130% on average, year on year. Imagine every year, Stephanie, the price of everything keeps doubling. The price of everything keeps doubling. So these people got scared of the financial system, and they still live with those bruises and scars. And no matter how much you can talk to that generation about their financial assets, about building a bond, they're not going to hear it. The only safe thing they know is land and a building. That's all they know, and that's all they can agree to. Why? Because of what they've experienced. And that is a scarring situation. No matter how you look at it analytically or anything, they went through it and they're terrified by it. So when they look at the financial system, all they can remember is that bruising. And a lot of your mindset is shaped around what you went through, especially in your teen to 20s, especially in that period. That is a time that shapes how you're going to see things and how you are going to filter things. Okay, so how you're going to frame things. And then secondly, they also speak about the financial system with fear because they've seen it melt down. Right now, since the 90s, there have been strong reinforcements, strong rule changes. There have been a lot of changes that are able to step in and prevent. Remember, back then, there wasn't even an independent central bank. Now you have a central bank that has a semblance of independence, so that when they see inflation running, this week the central bank is going to meet for the Monetary Policy Committee meeting. It is not a directive by the president of the country to say raise interest rates or drop them. The central bank is going to sit down as a collective and see how to use interest rate tools to make sure that they can take control of the situation. The central bank has market operations now so that the exchange rate doesn't go flying off the handle like it used to, where the kwacha was losing 40% of its value per year during that last period. You don't want to face that again. So there've been changes. So our generation is more inclined to make investments through the financial system because the financial system of Zambia has been reinforced and we haven't been through that breakdown. So that's why we will frame investing differently to the older generation because we see it differently. We see the situation differently, therefore we'll speak about it differently. And I think we just have to accept that. That's why I keep saying having this battle with your parents and stuff, even about entrepreneurship. Your parents lived in a country where businesses were shutting down every week. Okay? They lived in a country where the economy melted down, where nobody could run a business for long enough. That is this economic situation they had to live through. But you have lived through a stable situation where you can enter entrepreneurship, where you can enter business, where you can actually run a business fruitfully. You can actually do this. I'm not saying it's easy, but you can. There's a stable enough environment. And the thing about us younger generations, we think this is not a stable environment. It actually is. This is much more stable than the 90s and the 80s. It's much more stable. Okay, we just haven't been through the pain that they went through. So when they don't have a shine towards entrepreneurship, it's because they went through something that terrified them and traumatized them about entrepreneurship. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody has their traumas that they're dealing with. Okay? So that's why I'll say that a lot of the way you filter the world and a lot of the way you frame the world around you is a result of the experiences that are governing you right now. And if you want to change that, you need to change the meaning of those experiences. Okay, if you have to go back to your past, you're gonna have to change the meaning of those experiences for you. And it'll require you taking a zoom out picture and then starting to take a really deep look at it. That's kind of where this is an example of why people who try and make investment decisions with their parents in Zambia have to be quite careful because your parents are going to resist certain things. I'm not saying you're wrong, they're right. I'm saying you're both seeing things from the world you've been through. You're both seeing things from the world you've been through, and you're making decisions based on the experiences that you've had. And if you want to change those innate decisions, you need to revisit those experiences. Now, a lot of even when you're given investment advice by the old, you also have to remember that they're coming from that lifestyle. Is it the same economy? No. Is it the same economic structure? No, it's not. So you even have to say they are financial principles that our older generation have, which are very good. They're very disciplined with money. They're financial principles that they have. But when it comes to investment decisions, asset selections, there are some differences in what we've been through and what they've been through. And also there's a difference in the economy now versus the economy then. There's a difference, and you need to acknowledge the difference, or else you may be using outdated investment advice. Okay, that's the issue. The financial advice of manage your money well, budget, those things, they do that stuff, and you need to learn that stuff. But you need to also recognize some of the investment decisions that they're guiding us through may not be the ones that will stand the test of time. Okay, It may not be because the situation has changed, the structure has changed. I don't know if you ever thought about that, Stephanie, before we get into the main conversation today.
For me, I think it was more of an example where I've seen two people. He was actually a father, and his son was telling him, let's invest in an app. So the son was saying, there's an app that could actually help us to track people's investments, or whether it was finances. So let's create that app, and people will come through. And the father's like, really? An app? Are you sure? It can't work. So I'm actually agreeing with you when you talk about time. I think we come from two different worlds, and so in our world, I think you can make money from an app, but will your parents actually agree with you? They come from a different world, so of course it all has to do with your mindset and also the culture in which you belong, what you've actually based your culture on. Definitely.
Even career decisions, and I love the fact that you brought that up. Even career decisions, people are being told. Now, I'm not saying nurses and teachers are a bad career, but everyone should not be flooding into those careers. This
Yeah,
is
no
the
wonder we have
problem.
a lot. Yeah.
Mm. We don't have people being the new kinds of engineers. We don't have people. We don't have enough people in ICT. ICT is a huge shortage. But this country is going to require programmers. It's going to require systems designers. It's going to require people who understand cybersecurity. We're also going to have to keep importing those skills. But nobody's being taken in there because nobody's advising their children. So even career decisions, parents often make career decisions for their children based on what careers were prominent when they were young. They don't tell you what careers were prominent, what careers are sitting down. I'm sorry to say this, but not many parents sit down with human resource specialists to ask them, sorry, what are the trends of careers? What is the future of work in Zambia? Because you're
Mm.
not training your child for the work you knew was the one that was doing well. You're training your child for the jobs that are coming up. Because this is why we get the situation, Stephanie, where where a parent will pay for their child to go to college and then get shocked that their child cannot find work because you educated them in something that has become very difficult to find work in.
Yeah.
You say, well, the government is always hiring teachers. Are they? That's why we've had thousands of teachers sitting on the sideline because the government
But
is
yeah,
bankrupt.
probably
I think.
because also maybe because today we see that priority is mostly given to the education and health sector, and maybe that's what drives people's behavior and wanting to join either the health or the education sector. When was the last time you heard the government obviously employing thousands in the ICT sector? Probably there is no motivation in terms of employability.
And the assumption is the government is the only one hiring. That's the other
Exactly.
problem. The assumption,
Mm.
and remember that your parents come from a time of socialism and communism where there was only the government hiring. Okay? Today we operate differently. Do you know, Stephanie, that there are more students in private universities than they are in public universities? Even the vice president in a recent conversation about human capital on a panel that was being aired on CNBC, she said the key driver of our tertiary education now more than ever is actually our private universities, not our public ones. Our public ones have stayed
Mm.
the same in number, but the private universities are now almost 50% bigger than the public
Growing.
universities. So the assumption is that education will only be done through government education,
Mm.
well, right now, private. So even the private option for employment has not seeped into our parents' minds. They only know government because they were raised there. They understood it that way. So that's why I'm saying don't dismiss what your parents say. Don't dismiss it. There are principles they understand very, very, very well. Okay? Never dismiss what they tell you. Never. Because they understand the word in a principled fashion. But take it in an analytical fashion where you can see the environment around you and also look at what is still relevant in what they were telling me. What is not relevant and what is still relevant, because between generations, sometimes and we will do the same things, by the way, Stephanie. When we are parents, and when we will do the same things, where we will tell the children, no, you have to do things this way. What is this social media influencer thing? What is this social media marketing thing? What's this? We'll tell people these things, and then we won't recognize that we are speaking from a bias of our time. We are assuming the world hasn't changed since our time, and we think that what we know is, oh, it was right for the time we're in. A lot of decisions you make, Stephanie, some things are principally driven. And that's why you have to separate between universal principles and circumstantial situations. Some things are driven by the situation you are in. Okay, some decisions are a result of the situation you're in, some are principles. So let's get back to a recap of the power to change. One of the things that I wanted to just quickly point out here, and in fact, before we do that, we do have one comment here. Of course, we don't have the full comment, but we do have one comment here from Richard Mutalebwale, who has said, the mindset is cultivated over a lengthy period of time from environment you found in Google 21-day mindset principle, meaning if your environment never offered entrepreneurship, you can't become an entrepreneur overnight. A child left under the keep of thieves for say 30 years will end up a thief. The speaker is right. But the complete overhaul of the undesired mindset can only work if it is if the crusade of mindset was institutionalized. Government should bring on board people, and sorry, we didn't get the rest of that, but we will actually.
Again, I want to disagree on that very part where he says a child raised under thieves will become a thief. Again, it brings us back to mindset. I used to be of the idea that there's a certain common phrase, I think in vernacular, it used to go like, man's yakon can follow, right? I mean that, but as we got to many rivers, we saw that it's got streams. And so you can actually choose tribulations where you actually want to make a corner. So I don't agree for me when he says that that person is likely to end up as a thief. Chances are high, but they could actually still change and become.
Yeah, but he's working with the fact that chances are high. That's what he's working with. When he says the words likely, it is chances are high. Remember, one of our greatest, I told you that, I said this before, that the two strongest influences, especially in your life and your career, are the times you were raised in and the house you were raised in. These are the two strongest influences in your decisions. The house, especially your calling and things like that, a lot of that is the house you were raised in and the times you were raised in. So in other words, what was happening around that time? So it's going to be a strong influence, and assuming that it plays no role, this is where we have to be careful. We can disagree that it always ends up that way. It's true, but we have to be very careful about even using the word disagree, because then you're trying to say that that's not true. It is true that your parents are a powerful influence on you. They are an extremely powerful influence on you. This is why they have say over your life. Even in spirituality, this is an issue. So they are powerful in that way. So when he's trying to say, what he's also trying to say is it's very difficult to become what you've not been exposed to. And it's very easy to become what you've been exposed to, consistently exposed to, by people who you trust and identify with. Remember, one of the issues with parents also is we grab our identity from them. We identify with them because we share a name, we share a house, we share a bloodline. We share so much with them that we allow them to be a part of our identity. So it is a very powerful force, the importance of a parent and what they can do for your life. But yes, you can break away. There are plenty of examples of people who have broken away from systems of their family. But usually, Stephanie, it also comes from a realization that something was wrong, or a difference in something here. And two, it also comes from the fact that maybe they've been exposed to something different as well. So the only thing that can counter an exposure is a different and more powerful and emotionally compelling exposure. So you often find that Zambians who engage in entrepreneurship, and I'm talking about like where they've built businesses not self-employment, but entrepreneurship, where they built businesses that are hiring people, often have some exposure to life outside of Zambia. They've seen something outside. Okay, they've got some strong exposure or influence that has driven them to see the possibility of building something. So that's something that we need to break into. So remember, Stephanie, we've been talking about the power to change. Okay, and as we said, there's a mindset shift that needs to happen in this country. So remember, your mindset is altered by your filters, how you see the world, and your frames, what you say about the world. These are important things. So these are two different things. What you say is often also based on what language you speak. And I'm not talking about it only ethnically. I'm talking about whether you speak the language of business or you speak the language of employment. You can see the same thing, but say different things simply because you have a different language programmed into your mind. Okay, so you can speak the language of spending and speak the language of investing. There's languages that you're trained with. Even ethnically, by the way, two people can see the same thing, trying to say the same thing, but if you decode it into direct translation of English, they're saying something totally different. If a person misses the bus, okay, in English it's I missed the bus. In Tswana, it's the bus left me. That's a different sentence. Okay? And it's got different connotations to it. It's a different framing. It's I'm not responsible, the bus left me. Okay. The other one says I'm responsible and I missed the bus. You see the difference here. There's a subtle difference in the wording of the way we express situations that affects the way we take responsibility over a situation. The government must look over this versus I must do something about this. That's a difference in framing. So it's what language is up here that also affects what words come out here. So the visuals have to come in, processed with the language that's up here, and then so you filter according to the visuals, and then you frame according to the language that's been programmed up here. What are we programming ourselves with? What are we reading, seeing, watching? Who are we around? It's all affecting here. What language you speak is a result of the things you are engaging with in a media fashion, the people you are around, the people you are connected to, the identities you have. It's all drilled into here. And that's the way you speak about situations. So we went through the process, Stephanie, that change is a personal process. In other words, there is a personality change. You have to change your identity in order to change your actions. We call it the who before do method. So you have to change your identity before you change your actions. And we also realize that it's more of a change sustainably. And this is a difficult thing. This is the real difficult part for everyone. Change is a spiritual process. It really is. You have to dig deep. We are comfortable arguing with everyone around the world because nobody wants to have the argument inside. Nobody wants to go into their life and start making the adequate issues. What is it about the way I was raised? What is it about the people I'm around? What is it? What must I do? Nobody wants to address them as the person who they have to fix. They can say I'm wrong and all this, but addressing your issues, Stephanie, it takes work. It's painful. It takes having to change things that you're used to. It's a serious process. You're used to just walking into a shop and buying things. But now you have to walk around with a shopping list and actually stick to a shopping list. Okay? That's an uncomfortable process. You're used to just grabbing things at the till that you want. No, now you have to stick to a list. Okay? That's a different thing. And it's emotionally painful. Actually accepting responsibility for your own issues is emotionally painful. And nobody wants to go through emotional pain. You know how much we want to avoid emotional pain, Stephanie? We pay money to avoid emotional pain. Everything you spend money on, from the shirt you wear to the deodorant you buy or the clothing, whatever it is, the food, everything is about fighting emotional pain. You know how I know this is because all of us who even engage in any bit of marketing know that if you don't have emotions in your marketing message, you will lose that customer. People respond to their emotional needs being met, and they don't like to admit it, but that's the truth. So we have to look at a change from an identity perspective. The second thing is we have to accept change is a training process, not a trying effort. That's the other thing we've been talking about. So today we're going to introduce a concept which is going to drive us for the next 4 weeks, where we're going to be talking about the habits of change and the importance of habits of change. because I think this is where we execute them. And remember, we've been talking about financial habits, whether it's the millionaire surveys that have showed that people who have the millionaire class don't wait for themselves to get to higher level income. They start doing it from when they've got very little. They don't wait for themselves to become wealthy. They don't wait for themselves to get to a certain level of education. They start where they are. And how do they start where they are? They spend according to a budget. They invest regularly. They don't accrue debt. Those are the habits that they invoke. Okay? So you really have to start looking at what are the habits you need to start invoking, whether it's just budgeting everything. We're going to talk about things like keystone habits, making good habits easy. A lot of this has got to do with James Clear's Atomic Habits, but we'll also talk about this. And these are things that I'm working on at myself. I'm not perfect at them, but I'm working on them. Everyone is. We're trying to fix these areas. And these are the things you need to spend more of your time dealing with rather than who's shooting each other on social media. Social media is a wonderful place. People, I know that some of you are even watching us here, but I think the behavior sometimes goes out of control. So we need to focus on what is going to build our lives. So basically, we've talked about all of this. Now, if you go back to our identity change model, Stephanie, we said every person encounters a situation by asking 3 questions. And you do it instinctively. You do it so quickly. Who am I? What situation is this? And what does a person like me do in a situation like this? So you always remember who you are. Your identity is woven into you. So you often look at who am I? What situation is this? So let's say a guy with a gun comes, okay, or a guy who's armed comes, okay, and you see it, or even an intruder. First year in my life, Stephanie, I had an intruder in my bedroom when I was 20. I was 27. Okay, as my first year married, I have an intruder in my bedroom. All right, and here I am, and under normal circumstances, you don't even know what you'll do. Okay, who am I? Maybe I was a single young guy, run for cover, get out of this. Why is there someone in my bedroom? Is this a witch? What's this? But the difference was, come 28 years old, I'm a husband. I have my wife next to me. And that's an identity. So what do I have to do? I have to jump out of bed and run after this person. So who am I? I was a husband. What situation is this? I got an intruder in my house. I have a wife to protect. What does a person like me do? You protect your wife. You got to run after this person and catch them. Okay? Didn't manage to get the guy, but that was the reaction of a husband versus the reaction of a single dude who's like, there's an intruder in my house. Okay? And it can be anyone. So who you identify as versus the situation you're in will often determine your actions. So if you want to change your ways, Stephanie, you can't change a situation. You can't. A situation happens to you. You can't change that. But you can change who your identity is so that by the time that situation comes about, it is different. Okay. I did have a different identity versus the time before when maybe if that intruder came in, I'd have been petrified. But I had to instinctively act because that was a situation. That's my wife sitting there. Okay. I'm charged with protecting her. That's who I am. Okay. So though I have been long-winded and all this, Stephanie, I'm going to say this. If you want to start making changes in your life, and James Clear says this, even though your habits, the things you do habitually, automatically, do you know that 40% of everything you've done today and you will do today, Stephanie, about 40% is a result of instinctive habits. That's all it is. Like, which hand did you brush your teeth with this morning? Which shirt did you gravitate towards getting out? There are very few decisions you've made. About 40% of the things you do are the habits. Now, though habits make up 40% of our daily actions and decisions, they drive a lot of our instincts because a lot of that is who you are. So I want you, Stephanie, here's the exercise for today everybody should think about. When you are finding yourself in a situation, I want you to slow down and ask that question. If you know why, most of our bad habits and bad decisions, whether it's impulsive spending, borrowing, risky investment decisions, fear of all these things, most of them are because we allow those questions, who am I, what situation is this, how does a person, we allow those questions to run in the background. What I want everyone to do is to bring those questions to the forefront. Slow down, slow that question down. Like ask, who am I? In this situation, who am I? And I've talked about things like true you, understanding yourself by your true potential. Who am I? I'm a conqueror. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an investor. Okay. So when money hits your account and you tell yourself that you're an investor and you know that you are up here, then you're gonna ask, okay, what situation is this? My money has hit my account. Then what do investors do in a situation when they receive their money? They allocate the portion that goes into their savings and investment first. So if you slow down those three questions, for the meantime, when you're trying to make a change, do not allow those three questions to be answered automatically. Because currently, Stephanie, if you need to change something, your instincts are actually where your worst enemy lies. The devil is sitting in your instincts. Okay? And it's those instincts that are often going to lead you right. Money has hit my hand, time to go out, bam, time to have fun. It's Friday night. That's an instinct.
Yeah.
So you want to try and rewire that. If you want to rewire it, you're gonna have to slow that process down. Because if you automate that instinct, just know that your brain is currently wired incorrectly. So that rewiring process requires you to slow those questions down. Like very much. You need to slow the processing down so that you can now answer that question, who am I? Now when you say who am I, don't say who am I according to a quick answer. Say who am I according to who are you by your true potential? What do you have the potential to become? And that's got to be who you are. Then when you state the situation, then ask, what does a person of my true potential, what does that person do in this situation? Then you start to question the decisions you're making. And if you can change those subtle little habits, Stephanie, that 40% of your day's actions, over a long period of time, we'll probably start to see a lot more change. So it's who am I? The day comes, what do I do? When you make a transaction, Stephanie, who am I? Am I a wealth builder or not? If you're a wealth builder, who am I should be? I need to log that transaction I've just made into my phone or into my application so that I can make sure that I update my budget and reconcile it. Who am I? I'm a reckless spender. If that's so, spend and then you let the wind sort it out later. That's a difference right there. If you slow that question down, you'll actually start to now address the habits that need to take you to the victory line. So take it step by step, inch by inch. And I think for there, Stephanie, we'll close it out. We'll be doing habits for the next 4 weeks, and then we'll be moving into sowing and reaping. Can I leave?
Definitely. Exactly. Now, to you that's been listening, you might as well want to join us tomorrow again. We're back same time, same place. For now, it's bye.
Bye for now.